good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining us. We're the 10th grade students from the Arun Poda School. This is my friend Arun, Ranjana. At the recently held summit at our school, we went through the design thinking process where we learned various and more improved ways of dealing with the water management. And through this presentation, we would like to share our experience during this summit. So the challenge statement. Now, after a lot of thought process, we came up with a challenge statement that actually concerned us. The low-lying residential areas in the suburb of the Santa Cruz region in Mumbai experiences waterlogging, which is logged and pumped away every monsoon. Um, yes. So a quick raise of hands. How many of you have seen the news channels where they actually show the waterlogged areas and streets, or maybe even experienced it by getting stuck in the traffic jam? Yeah, that's a lot. So why not use this as an additional source to collect it and provide it to the people who can actually make use of it? So that is why, so the solution.
So for a solution, we created a prototype that can, of a transport system that can process and purify water on the go. So you see, there's no need to collect the flood water and then send it to a water transportation plant, a water purification plant, and then to the people who require this resource. We are saving time and fuel here, which are like two of the most important resources in the upcoming years. So, well, this is how a prototype looks like. And this is how it works. Sorry for the lights. So, yeah, so a quick go through of how the process works. So step one, water is pumped up for like if there is a puddle or somewhere. So the water is pumped up from there through suction. Step two, it passes through a filter that filters out all the heavier dense materials which fall down, and then you can collect those materials and dispose them off depending on whether they're biodegradable or not. The second step is the vortex chamber. So that is what we added new to this to our solution. So what exactly happens is that the vortex chamber is conical in shape. So when the water flows through it, it naturally spins. So we have chunks of alum placed in there, so that increases the weight of the lighter sediments. They settle down at the bottom, and then you can remove them using a sludge sucker. So the sedimentation process is done. Then we have the activated carbon chamber. So for the activated carbon chamber, it just removes the odor, the color, and some of the toxic compounds present in the water. Then it passes through a water conditioning chamber. Now in that, based on the pH level of the water, that is if the water is acidic or alkaline, we add sodium hydroxide or dilute carbonic acid to regulate the pH level of water, which is 7. Then later it passes through a nanofilter. Now the nanofilter is so small and so thin that it can actually remove or stop some of the microbes that are present in the water. Later in the containment tank, this is again we added a new thing, which is the containment tank already has UVC lamps in them. So what happens is that the UVC lights change the DNA of the microbes in such a way that they stop reproducing. And then later we have added sodium hypochlorite, which is a deinfectant. So this directly kills the microbes, and this whole process kills 99.99% of the microbes that are already there in the water. And then you can use this water for your domestic use.
So we learned a lot of things during this 2-day program in TRAI. There were many things, like we learned focusing on our thoughts and not like having a blank idea, but we learned to focus on our points. And then working in teams, hearing others' ideas, we learned more about our solutions. We learned to adjust to each other's solutions, and then we created a bigger solution which is there. And then we learned forming the right to the point and sturdy problem that will have a solution. We cannot have a problem which does not have a solution. So we focused on the problems that could have a solution. And then we also designed the least expensive and possible solution for our problem. And then this will help us, the process of design thinking will help us in our future for sure. So the process of design thinking helped us think precisely. It taught us to form the right questions in order to get the right answers, which will also help us in our examinations, which is going to come in March. And also, as students, design thinking has helped us study and gain as much information from a particular topic as possible. Uh, because in water management, when we went deep into the topic, when we researched, when we studied, we did not think that there were other solutions like adding sodium hypochlorite and using UV lamps. So through research, we came to know about all these topics. Now I would like to call Aryan, who will explain what are new things we added in our prototype after researching.
So we were complete with our model, and then we thought, can we really act? Because this is the great thing about design thinking. What happens is that, okay, this was like a three-day trial, and even when it ended, we were still stuck with that idea behind our head. We're like, maybe we can add something more, maybe we can make it better. And that is when we got to know that, wait, we forgot about the sedimentation tank, which is like the very basic thing that you use for water purification. So that is what we did. We added the vortex chamber for the sedimentation tank. Then we did a little bit research, and then we got to know about sodium hypochlorite and UV lamps. We had no idea that UV light was capable to do all that. So that is what we added more.
Thank you very much for being such a patient and wonderful audience. Now we would like to call upon the next team to present their prototype.
Okay, good morning, everyone. All right, so we are students of Aranpoda School 2 from grade 10. We call ourselves the Raising 3, as is evident in the picture. And that is probably the only picture of us you'll find of us working and not fooling around, so we had to add it. uh, anyways, so the first task of the summit was to design a challenge statement. So the challenge statement was a problem which we really thought that we could make a change of. And our challenge statement was to conserve surface runoff, which is the rainwater which comes. And it is very important because it is an important source of fresh water supply. And particularly in Mumbai, because how many of us know about the floods, water clogging every year? Mumbai receives a lot of rainfall, and yet we suffer from this acute water shortage. So clearly the problem is not in the lack of resources, but in our inability to harness it, to use it properly. There's a picture of the picture which puts things into perspective.
Yeah, so the left side of the picture explains that in a rural area where you have the soil, which is porous in nature, every time when it rains, there's deep infiltration, as in it increases the water table. Whereas if you look at the urban picture on the right, you realize that because of the concrete, which is non-porous, most of the water gets run off, and you're not able to access or increase the water table, even though most of the water that we get in our buildings sometimes gets used only by the water table. We just, using it instead of actually increasing it throughout. So it's going to deplete, get ended in some time. So you want to further?
Yeah, so our solution. So
So this is what our prototype looks like. There's a sieve over here, and there is a fire rod system over here. So the fire system cleans the sewage, and the pure water is collected in these tanks. So this is the fire rod system. Over here, this is the sewage, and the water and the sewage water goes into these stones. There are bacteria on these stones which eat the sewage, and further, when the sewage passes through the stones, the water gets purified and can be stored into these containers.
Okay, just that this phytoid system, which it's actually present at various universities, like the one in Somaya College, then the Ganpat University in Gujarat. So, however, there was a slight tweak which we made in this, which was such that we prevented the surface, the fresh water, from actually mixing with the sewage. What we ensured is that the fresh water went in a different channel, the sewage water went in a different channel. And so the benefits of our prototype. Okay, so as I said, what happens is we have formed an efficient way to remove the solid waste from the sewage. So we have now been able to remove the solid waste. So we are preventing all the clogging which causes waterlogging and everything. The second, what we have done is we have segregated the less concentrated sewage, which is almost fresh water from the rains, and the concentrated sewage from the households. So there's a lot of profits in, because we'll be using different methods to purify the fresh water for domestic use than the sewage. Now, but this is all science and stuff, and I'm pretty sure we're not very concerned with it. I think which Karishma ma'am, who was organizing our Try Summit, she made a very important point. The thing isn't about science and our robotics and everything. That is all important. The most important part which I want to get to is our learnings from the Try Summit. So one thing, okay, once again, the first thing, this really moved me, because one thing we had to do was to fix our problem. We were given about an hour to do that, just to concentrate on what our problem was. And that is very weird, right? Because finding out problems, we always complain. And yet in this 1 hour, we figure that we are all jumping to solutions without knowing what the problem was. So the next one would be to be concise and realistic in our approach, because during ideating process, we were always wild with our imagination, doing this, doing that, and when we actually went on to build the prototype, we couldn't do that. So, which brings us to my most important point, improvisation. Um, I guess it probably doesn't give a good effect, but the best term would be jugaad, because because honestly uh, we are given 3 to 4 hours for making our prototype. Halfway through the thing, we hadn't established anything. Our plans had failed. We couldn't get the programs running, and it's then that we understood that all three of us had different perspectives of the model. We had different ideas. What we had to do was put them all together, mash them, filter them out, make the best, and forget the ego. My idea is better, yours is better. Do the one which is best for the prototype. So,
So just explaining some of the science part again. Yeah, so this explains, this is what actually is a normal system which is there in our city currently. When you have the normal sewage water just going through right here for treatment, whereas when you have rainwater coming in all the time during the rainy season, monsoon, etc., most of these hatches get clogged or get stopped by the municipal by basically the people who control them, because that's why you have basically flooding all over these areas. And we don't even realize that the surface runoff water is actually mixing with the sewage water and gets released right into the ocean or the sea without treatment. So we thought that this is actually the worst pollution, you know having the worst effect to the environment. Whereas if we could use our system, a prototype, which is able, if we install it right here, we're able to control the water flow through our sluice gates, just with our organic sensors, and we're able to control the water flow which goes right here, and we're able to segregate the waste and then treat it further.
All right. As the other group, our friends just said, uh, even after the dry summit, we were stuck with the idea of continuously trying to improve because we were not very satisfied with our model. One thing we understood because one thing we thought of a slight tweak, and while we were preparing for our exams, again exams, but we just got the idea: what if the farmers could use this? We installed our pH sensors. Instead of organic sensors, we made a slight tweak with the pH sensors. So now we ensure that for every specific pH, the water, which has magnesium carbonate and calcium carbonate in it, it is basic in nature. So the pH of the soil is controlled by the water which is sent to the soil. So if we have a pH sensor, we could ensure that the irrigation by the farmers is automated, and this will help all the problems solving alkalinity, salinity, all the problems faced by the farmers. So our improvements can be used, and that is something we are proud of more than that of our prototype. So
Yeah, we just wanted to take some. We're thinking about taking our prototype ahead by starting a Kickstarter program, then get funded mostly, or just introducing it to the BMC and having a cost-effective measure so that we can actually install it and help the environment. Uh, yeah.